Hi, everybody. My name's Amy Carrier. Welcome. Um, I'm going to let the audience build here. I'm broadcasting on Rayhan's page today so that we can reach a larger audience. So thank you for joining. And I'm going to ask you to go ahead and share this video right now while I post it in my classroom, since this is not my classroom. But welcome. I'm glad you're here, and I'm looking forward to having a larger discussion today. And some of you may recognize me. I am Amy Carrier. Rayhan and I do a live weekly entrepreneurship show every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern and 10 p.m. Pakistani time. So we are doing that now here. And thank you for your patience. I just need to share this in a couple of places. And if you would share as well, today we're going to be talking about empathy. I would love to have more of your friends join us. So thank you for sharing. And let's see. I'm curious. Okay, we do have some members of my class here. That's great. Very happy about that, actually. So let's take just another couple of minutes. It's only 1:01 in my world, or 10:01 in your world. I'm glad you guys are here. I'm looking for our audience to grow and for people to have some questions about empathy and about teaching empathy. And for those of you who do not know me, my name is Amy Carrier. This video is actually the description at the top has my personal Facebook page so that you can connect with me or follow me there. And it also has a link to my virtual classroom, which is where I am teaching lessons like this that I'm teaching today on Rayhan's page. And Rayhan and I have worked together for a while now, and we're very interested in reaching as many people as we can. So I think I have shared everything where it needs to be shared. Let me just double check. How are you guys doing? Hello, Shukat from Dubai. What is empathy? Bilal Khan asked that question. That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. This is such a huge topic, and there's a lot to talk about. There are a lot of questions that have come up since I did my live video on Friday evening in my world. And I want to talk about empathy, and I want to talk about teaching empathy. So thank you all for being here. I actually, if you would like, you can click on the description for today's live video, and I actually put the lesson format. So I'll just tell you really quickly, we're going to spend a few minutes here building the audience, and then I'm going to go into and talk about the things that I want to talk about in terms of empathy. And I want you all to start thinking about how we actually teach empathy. And I know some people said, what is empathy? So we're going to talk about that too. So we are only 4 minutes into this live video. I'm going to give it another couple of minutes. So please share this video. This is going to be a very important conversation today. And that's really evidenced by the fact that I'm doing this on Rayhan's page so that we can reach many, many more people, because this is very important. I encourage you to follow me on Facebook. My name is Amy Carrier. I am an entrepreneurship and career readiness teacher, and I have built a virtual classroom here on Facebook. It's actually a group on Facebook. It's called Amy Carrier's Classroom. If you're watching this video and you're not already a member, you're welcome to join. Please just be sure to answer the 3 questions. And there are essentially 3 rules to join my virtual classroom. The first is you must have a profile photo. The second is that you must have your name, even if your name is written in Hindi or Urdu or Chinese, you need to have it written in parentheses in English. And that's because my virtual classroom is interactive and people need to be able to tag you in order to communicate with you. So please be sure you do that. And then the third rule is that you just need to answer those 3 very simple questions, which are pretty much where are you from and why are you joining the group. So thank you all for being here. And you can take a moment to do that right now because I'm not getting into the nitty-gritty of my topic today for another couple of minutes because I know that there are a lot of people who want to join this. So let me just double check that we are streaming everywhere we need to be streaming. Okay, we're there. Is anybody here in Amy Carrier's classroom? Do you see us streaming there? Hi, Cassandra. Cassandra, can you see us streaming in the classroom? Oh, and Carla's here and Alex. Great. Wonderful. Thank you guys for being here. And Carla, Alex is one of the mentors in Amy Carrier's classroom. Carla teaches English here on this, on Rayhan's channel as well. So I'm very glad that you are here. And Farouk, you're the one who asked this question on Friday. Isn't that right? I believe it is. Farouk Ishqrak asked this question about empathy. And, oops, I thought I muted that. He asked this question about empathy. He was specifically looking for lessons on empathy. So that, and if any of you have seen the live video that I streamed on Friday evening, my time, it's now been viewed by over 4,200 people just off my personal page. And that's quite impressive. And it was pretty much about a half hour of me asking my own questions about teaching empathy and about empathy in general, which have led to what I'm going to be talking about here in just a minute or two. So I'd like you all to hit the share button. And hey, Alex. All right, let me get over to the classroom. Cassandra, Alex, did you guys see this link on the classroom page? Yes. Okay, good. So what I'm going to do is actually open it. The sound might pop on. If so, forgive me. Page? Yes. Okay, good. It does that every time. Okay. So I want to make sure that I see all of your questions and comments because the last half hour of this is going to be interactive. So please say hello. I'm so glad you guys are all saying hello. I'm glad you're here. And let me just pull up my notes. All righty. So Shukak Niazi says, this is a very important topic. It is, I agree. So I'm glad you're here and I'm glad you're participating. Excuse me, my cat is down here and he's been cleaning himself, so there's just a lot of cat fur. So I'm curious. Hey, Alex, looks like you dropped off and came back. I'm glad you're here. I'm curious how we teach empathy to the world. And so I'm starting my lesson now, so go ahead and hit share and just know that I'm not going to be paying attention as much to your questions and comments, but when we get to the Q&A, I'm going to scroll back up. So you're welcome to ask a question here now. And what came up for me, I had a challenging week last week, and I ended up taking Friday, essentially taking it off and going to the beach for myself because I needed I needed to take care of myself and have some self-love. And in the process, I was sitting on the beach and reflecting on the fact that there's a lack of empathy in the world and in a lot of people. And I'm very empathetic. I'm an empath. I can feel other people's feelings. I, for most of my life, thought about other people's needs before myself. And that's an unhealthy version of empathy. But so I spent this time on Friday kind of asking myself deeper questions and trying to find answers about what empathy is. There's my cat. And then the bigger question I had is how we teach it. And that's what I would really like input from you all about today, is how do we teach it? So here are my first questions. First of all, what is empathy? And I was asked this question during my live stream. Excuse me, my cat is meowing. Here he is. Say hi, Mikey. There we go. Hopefully he's quiet now. So, I thought about what is empathy exactly? And I know my own history with an unhealthy or imbalanced empathy, where I was feeling more for other people than I was for myself. So I've done years of work to learn how to love myself, but I still have a ton of empathy. I mean, the fact that I'm doing this right now, that I've started Amy Carrier's classroom, this is my volunteer work, one of my many volunteer activities. And I do it because I care about our human family. I have empathy for what's happening in our world right now. And it's important to me to do my part to help our human family. So I just saw Nazir. I just showed my cat. I think he's hopefully quiet over in this chair right now, so I'm not going to lift him up. But, knowing that I've learned how to kind of, for the most part, have my empathy in balance, I was reflecting on Friday on the people who didn't have their empathy turned on, so to speak, who had said things and done things that had kind of hurt me a little. And most of the time I'm fine. I acknowledge that other people are going through whatever they're going through, and I don't take it personally. That's actually part of my bigger lesson that I want to teach here, is that you shouldn't take personally what other people say or do, because it's not about you, it's about them. Period. End of discussion. It's about them. Even if they're attacking you, even if they're saying mean things and judging you. To those of you who participated in one of my live talks with Rayhan a few weeks ago, I said something that I often say, which is, your opinion is none of my business. Anyone else's opinion of me is none of my business. And why do I say that? It's because what you think of me, whether it's nice, whether it's mean, it has nothing to do with me, and I shouldn't concern myself with wondering or thinking about or changing the way you think about me. It's my job to be me and bring the best version of me to the world. I hope that makes sense to you. So I just want to do a quick check-in. We've only just started talking about empathy, but can you give me a thumbs up or a yes? Is this helpful? Are you guys tuned in here? And let me know that you're on board. And absolutely, I haven't seen anybody share this video yet. So I'm going to pause right here. I'm a teacher. And if you're in Amy Carrier's classroom, then you know that I don't do things without giving other people the opportunity to learn from them. So I'm going to ask that at least, let's see, there are 48 of you watching right now. I'm going to ask that at least 8 of you share this right now. And I can see who's sharing. So I don't see anybody sharing right now. So you can all very easily right now go down to the bottom if you're on your phone. Hi, Betul, how are you? And just hit the share button, please. We're talking about empathy and it matters to the whole world. So thank you for doing that. Here we go. Fahad Shahab, thank you. He said he shared. It's interesting. I don't see that you shared because I can actually see. Now, it might just be a delay. Okay, good. Mian Rehan, he shared. Okay. Muhammad Safdar shared. Excellent. Okay, and Alex shared from the start. Great. Okay, so here we go. If empathy is caring about others in the world, how do we do that? And the starting point, so my answer here for the starting point of how do you care about other people in the world? How do you have empathy for them? It starts by putting yourself in their shoes, in their circumstances. And some of us can actually emotionally feel what someone else feels. It's fine if you can't. It's actually it's a trait that you develop with time. So how do you begin if you can't feel what other people feel? And the very simple answer to that is you stop. You have to pause whatever you're doing and you kind of tune into yourself, your heart. Try to get out of just your brain, but if that's all you can get into is your brain, drop in, that's fine. But do your best to drop into your heart and say, okay, what would it feel like if I were that person right now? Let's say, for example, that person just got laid off from his job. How would that feel to me? Can I just close my eyes? Can I imagine what it would feel like to be laid off from my job? And maybe you can. If you can't feel it, then imagine it. Okay, if I got laid off from my job, I would probably be a little scared because I don't know where my next paycheck is going to come from. I would probably be feeling anxiety because I have to go home and tell my family I've lost my job. I might be feeling less valuable because if my employer laid me off or fired me, they don't value me. So where is my value? What am I worth? So you want to find these types of examples of how the other person might feel. And that's the starting point for empathy, imagining how they feel. And if you can drop into your heart and feel, again, like I said, close your eyes and try to feel what it would feel like to have just lost your job or whatever the other person is going through. And that's just an example of one-on-one, you feeling empathy for another person. But you can also feel empathy for groups of people, for entire nations. I collectively feel empathy for all children on this planet. I always have. It's my work. It's my soul's work. So I feel for the 2 billion children on this planet, whether they are living in poverty, whether anywhere in the world, whether they're living in Somalia with the drought and the turmoil there right now, whether they're living in inner cities in the United States of America, and even white affluent children, where in my country, and in your country, I'm sure you can think about it too, who are the most advantaged people? Can I feel empathy for those people too? And yes, you can. Absolutely you can. Why wouldn't you? They're people. They're just like you. And all people have thoughts and worries and concerns and dreams and hopes. Everyone is the same. It's just our packaging, what we look like, the homes we live in, That's what's different. The languages we speak are different, but our feelings, who we are on the inside, is no different. And that's, if you believe that, that's where empathy starts. If you don't believe that, then I encourage you to take some time to really think about that. And that's fine. You might be at the point where you need to actually do some deeper learning of yourself in relationship to other people in the world. So can I get a yes or a thumbs up? Are you guys still on board? Is this making sense? So I have 5 questions that I'm answering today. And the first one was, what is empathy? So I hope that I've made that clear enough. Obviously, empathy is a huge topic, and I could write an entire book on it. But we're just doing a 30-minute lesson and then Q&A here. So I'm just giving you kind of the top level, what I'd like you to think about in terms of what is empathy. And Mohammed Safdar asked that question, what is empathy? So these are my answers. And I want to make sure that you are here and you're hearing them. Okay, good. Nazir says, do I feel empathy for my cat? So much, because he's very old. He's over 18 years old. And I know that his bones are weak. I hear his joints click when he walks. I have to lift him up to put him on a chair, on a bed. Yes, I have empathy for my cat, right? I have empathy. Honestly, if you know me, if you've watched any of my live videos, you probably see that I pretty much have empathy for everyone. For those of you who don't know anything about my background, I have worked with the most disadvantaged people in the world, and the most disadvantaged communities. And that includes the work I did in Kenya with orphaned, abandoned, and sex-trafficked girls, teaching them how to feel empowered and valuable. And it also includes working with juvenile boys who are in prison here in the United States. My empathy knows no bounds. As far as I'm concerned, I'm a human, you're a human. There's no difference between you and me. So, all right, next question I want to talk about is, how do we actually, I already answered this one. How do we live empathy? How do we live it out loud? I kind of answered it, like, how do we do empathy? So you do that by putting yourself in someone else's shoes, but how do we live empathy in our daily lives? The first way is by taking time to step out of our lives for just a moment. Even if you just choose to do this for 5 minutes a day, take yourself out of your own worries, your own concerns, your own busyness, your to-do list, or all the things you need to be working on, and think about someone other than yourself. It could be a group of people, it could be an individual, but think about someone other than yourself. And it may be easiest for you to think about someone you already know and care about. So, for example, when my oldest niece was born, she was the first child born in my family. And when she was born, I felt this overwhelming sense of love for her. Oh my gosh, I would have done anything for her. I still would. I will. But for me, it was this like immediate understanding. And to those of you who have children or have children in your family or nieces or nephews or a grandmother that you love so much, you think about that person and you imagine how much you love them and how can you feel empathy for them. It's not necessarily the action out, externally, outside of you. It's the inside. How do you feel the empathy? And then what does that feeling of empathy inspire you to actually do for them? And then later on, when you get better at this, you can apply this to groups of people or to strangers or even to the person who maybe cut you off in traffic, who your immediate reaction was, oh my gosh, how can this person do that? I had the right of way. You can actually let yourself get to the point where you say, wow, that person's really in a hurry. They're driving dangerously, so their mind must be somewhere else. Something must be bothering them, obviously. Maybe they're upset. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they're running late to get to work and they know that their boss will fire them. Or maybe their mother's in the hospital and they're just trying to get there. Just feel that empathy. Okay, so my next question here is how do we look for it? And this is trickier. How do we look for empathy in the world? And the reality is you can't look for it without being empathy. You can't expect empathy from other people if you aren't giving empathy to the world. It's kind of simple because right now we know that there's not enough empathy in the world. Oh, outstanding. Okay, I see that 16 people have shared this video. That's amazing. If you've just joined us, please hit the share button and join those 16 people who want to make a difference in the world by teaching empathy. So thank you all for doing that. And so this idea of looking for it outside in the world, you just can't. Right now, if you're here, if you're watching this video, you're learning it so that you can be a teacher and so that you can be a bringer of empathy to the world. Congratulations, you're on the forefront. You get to be one of the first people to do this. And there was a gentleman in Amy Carrier's classroom, which is my virtual classroom on Facebook, who also asked the question on, or made the statement on Friday in my classroom that there's not much empathy in his country. That nobody, actually he said nobody, I'll just say there's not much because people are people. That there's not much empathy in his country and it's not taught. So he wanted me to talk about it and to create a lesson. And that's what I'm doing here right now today. So you have to be this before you see it. And there's a Gandhi quote that I have actually hanging up here on my whiteboard that says, and I'm sure you've heard it, it says, be the change you wish to see in the world. Be the change you wish to see in the world. So you have to be the empathy you wish to see in the world. Okay? And then this was a question that was asked during my live video on empathy on my personal page on Friday. And that question was, how do we identify other empathetic people? And I think that this is such a great question because the only way to really identify that someone is being empathetic with you, or I think the other part of his question is, how do we tell that they're genuine? The only way to do that is by feeling, again, dropping from your head into your heart. What do you feel about this person? Do you feel like they're being genuinely empathetic toward you or genuinely concerned about you? Sometimes people aren't, and sometimes the best thing for you to do is to walk away from those people. So, and that's not always easy to do. So sometimes you have to make difficult decisions. Sometimes you have to actually cut people out of your life. And that's okay. It really is, because you're not meant to be everything for everyone. And you're certainly not meant to be everyone's punching bag. And I know a lot of you have felt that way before. And it's not a good feeling, and there's a reason for that. The reason for that is that you're not supposed to be subjecting yourself to the abuse of someone else, ever, for any reason. And that even includes with family members. So how do you tell if they're empathetic? You have to do the harder work of identifying people who don't have your best interest at heart and taking the sometimes difficult action to walk away from those people. I've done it. It's not easy at all, but it's an act of self-love. So I know you can do it. And when you open space in your life, after you've gotten rid of those people who don't have your best interest at heart, you have more space for more people who are empathetic, who are kind towards you, who do care about you, who are respectful toward you. I hope that makes sense. And obviously it's an even larger, tricky discussion because I'm telling you that you're going to have to let go of a lot of people throughout your life because they're not ready yet. They might come back. You know, they might have learned from their mistakes. It's not your job necessarily to teach them in any other way other than your own personal choices and behavior. And I've done that actually a lot. Some of the people that I've had to just move away from have actually showed up later in my life and either written to me or reached out to me and said that they learned by my leaving them or just telling them I wasn't going to be participating in our friendship to such a depth. They've learned. So you are actually a teacher by living your empathy out loud, as long as you take care of yourself. Okay. And then the last question, and this is what I want to get some interactive discussion happening around. I want your thoughts and your ideas. And the last question is, how do we teach empathy? That's a huge question. So I've kind of answered it. I personally have already thought about and already worked on teaching empathy to children. And I think it's much easier to teach empathy first as a concept to children and to teenagers, and then teach them how to do it, how to again, like I said, drop from your mind, your thought center into your heart, which is your feeling center, and feel your empathy there. And people can be taught this, but how do you, as just a grown adult, living your life, moving through the world, how do you teach it? And my answer right now is you live it by being it. I'm sorry, you teach it by living it, by being it, by being the change you wish to see in the world, being the empathy you wish to see in the world. But I really want to know, are there other ways to teach it? I mean, because we are adults and other people have the freedom to be who they are and make the choices they want to make. It's not like you can just stop them on the street and say, hey, I noticed that you're not being empathetic. I'd like to talk to you about empathy. Who knows? Maybe that would work with the right person. With the wrong person, maybe it could start some sort of unfortunate engagement that you just don't want to be participating in. But I really want to hear from everyone. And I'm going to actually, so the questions, I'm going to be looking down at my screen to find the questions. And I'm going to ask that you all take a moment here to give me a thumbs up. Have you learned something here today? Or you can just say yes. Or you can give a heart. All right, cool. Alex is giving me a bunch of thumbs up. I haven't seen any thumbs up in a while. Or no hearts? I'm Amy Carrier. I'm all about the hearts. Haven't you guys seen all the hearts on my Instagram and on my Facebook page? I see hearts all the time out in nature, just randomly. You know, a mud puddle in the street might be the shape of a heart. I take a picture of it and I share it with the world so that others are reminded that there are signs of love everywhere. So thank you for the hearts. I see some hearts here. And okay, Fahad Shahab says, yes, he has learned. Farouk Ishqrak says, lecturing empathy to someone you are, Farouk, please put post that comment again because I want to know what you're saying. Yeah, Alex, it's not necessarily your job to teach people. I think that there are teaching moments all the time in life, especially when we're working with children and teenagers, and we should use those teaching moments. For those of you who don't know what I mean by a teaching moment, it's an opportunity to kind of stop in your tracks when you're seeing something that a child or a teenager who's with you can learn from. So it's a teaching moment. You stop what you're doing and you use that opportunity to teach that teenager or your child, or a child, if you're a teacher, a child in your classroom, to teach something. And I actually do this in my virtual classroom as well, even though I'm not teaching children. So you can learn how to do it there as well. Mian Rehan says, he gave me a lot of hearts. Thank you very much. Thanks, Farouk, for typing in again. What should be the limit of empathy in entrepreneurs? That's Nasir Munir's question. That's a good question. So I think I'm going to just answer it right now. What should be the limit? I don't think that there can be a limit that anybody outside of yourself can set, right? So do you have a limit, Nasir? Do you feel like, well, here, let me use myself as an example. I hit a limit on Friday. And that doesn't mean that I stopped being empathetic to other people. It meant that I took myself out of any situation, any environment where I was going to have to put my heart energy into it consciously. And I just took care of myself. I went to the beach by myself. I sat there, I listened to the waves, I watched people, I asked God for messages. I got lots of messages. You should watch that video, the live video on Friday. I talk about some of those messages. Hello, I see a bunch of people have just joined us. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about empathy today, and I've just given a lesson on empathy, and I really encourage you to go back and watch the first 30 minutes of this video because we're doing the live Q&A. So this is your opportunity to interact with me and ask questions. And you can answer my question, which is, how do we teach empathy in the world? So I'm looking down to get your comments and your questions and respond to them. So thank you to everybody who's just joined us. Everybody take a moment to share this video. This is such an important topic today. I think that those of you who are here know that, and your presence is really valuable here because it's telling me that this is important to you. So, excuse me. Okay, Farouk Ishkrak asked his question again. And this is, Farouk is the man who asked this question initially on Friday. After I, for my own reasons, separately went to the beach and just kind of had a time out from life to just take care of myself, I came home and saw Farouk's question in my virtual classroom. So he is saying here now, what he meant is that it can't be lectured, from what I've understood. It's something that we need to live. Yes, yes. In my own self, it shall be for others to learn from my behavior. Absolutely. So Farouk, you just said what I said earlier, and you and I agree. And this is about living your empathy out loud in the world and just showing others how to do it. I agree with you. So Fahad Shahab asked the question, does empathy depend on the role you are, like parent, friend, professional? Does it change with age? Fahad Shahab, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to answer your question, but I'm also going to ask you to answer the question in the comments again, please, because I want to know what you think. And my answer is that empathy is about the person. It doesn't matter if you're a parent or a professional. It doesn't matter the environment you're in. You should be exhibiting your empathy to other human beings, regardless of whether or not they are professionals or children or parents or a stranger on the street. They're all worthy of your empathy. By the way, guys, I want to ask a question. Is the video choppy for you, or is the audio choppy for you? In my view, the video keeps being pixelated. I just want to make sure that it's okay for you. Can you let me know yes or no if the video is okay and the audio is okay? Okay. Alex says the video and the audio is perfect in Sweden. Excellent. That's all I need. If Sweden has got it, then we're good. Okay, so Fahad Shahab, I haven't seen your response yet, other than about the video. So let me know what you think. Do you agree with my answer? And Camille Riaz Kara says that it's a great way to teach others. And I'm assuming you're agreeing with me that by exhibiting your empathy, that's the way to teach other people, right? Okay, Nazir Munir says that the video is fine as well. Okay, good, thank you. So it's good in Pakistan, it's good in Sweden, we're good to go. Thank you. So Fahad, okay, he answered my question. And again, everyone, please ask your questions and answer that question. How do we teach empathy? If you've got other questions related to empathy and how it's, how we actually do it in the workplace or in our work of building a business or building our careers, go ahead and ask those questions as well. So, Fahad Shahab answered my question. He said, I tend to think that it changes with age. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to clarify that again. How does it change with age? I think for myself, I've always been extremely empathetic. I actually consider myself an empath because I have this ability that a woman yesterday called it a sixth sense. I've always been able to feel other people in a way that for most of my life I didn't understand. That what I was feeling was I was picking up on other people's feelings and emotions and worries and concerns and anxieties, and I was taking them in as my own, even though they weren't my own. It took me many, many years and until I was into my adulthood before I could begin to understand that I was feeling that other person's feelings as my own, and that wasn't good. Those weren't my feelings. I could learn to feel empathy without letting myself feel anxiety because the other person is feeling anxious, or without letting my world fall apart because the other person's world is falling apart. So I'm not someone who's learned empathy over time. I've always had empathy. That could mean that to have a really balanced lesson here, we would actually benefit from having someone else in this live video who has learned empathy to give you their perspective in addition to mine. But Fahad Shahab, please specify what you mean that it changes with age. So, okay, Farouk Ishaq, Ishraq is talking about empathy in business policies. And let's hold that thought for just a minute because I want to make sure. Okay, and Fahad Shahab says, maybe exhibiting empathy really changes when you have conflicting goals. Guilt happens and self-empathy suffers, and eventually others suffer. Okay, Fahad, I think what you're illustrating is the work that people need to do on themselves and to always take care of themselves while they're also having empathy for other people. And I used a metaphor on Friday during my live video that it is very valuable. And I use this metaphor a lot in my private coaching, with my clients, with students, and that is if you've ever flown on an airplane. Before the airplane takes off, the flight attendant, excuse me, I couldn't remember what the flight attendant was called. The flight attendant will say to you, in the case of an emergency, and they even point up at the ceiling, the oxygen mask will drop from the ceiling, and then they demonstrate to you how to put that oxygen mask on your face and, put the elastic around your head so that you are getting oxygen before you then put the oxygen mask on someone else. And I think that's such an amazing metaphor for life. And that is, you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of someone else. Now, it's not at the exception of taking care of everyone else. You might have to do something like I did on Friday, which was take most of the day off and go take care of myself. I didn't take a year off, and my time away from helping other people did not include hurting other people. It was just, I'm taking care of me. I'm loving myself today because I need it in order to fuel myself to have empathy for and take care of other people again. I hope that addresses what you're talking about, Shahab, because if you are taking care of yourself, and always remember that oxygen mask, why would you ever feel guilty for putting the oxygen mask on yourself so that you can stay alive in order to put oxygen mask on anyone else so that they can stay alive? You have to take care of yourself first. You have to love yourself first. And you should not feel guilty for that. And Fahad, so I also do spiritual teaching. And I haven't really ever talked about it in Amy Carrier's classroom. It's something that I do in person. If there is, hi Umer Sudike, thanks for joining us. If there's someone who is interested in the more spiritual side of my work, which is kind of digging deeper into this type of topic that we're talking about, teaching empathy is valuable to all humans. The deeper work that I think Fahad Shahab is picking up on, this is something that I do elsewhere, so you're welcome to connect with me about that. But there's no need for you to feel guilty. I just want you to hear that a couple of times from me. And this is your own personal work. This is your personal growth and your personal relationship with yourself. If you're religious, with your God, with anything that you consider to be your true north. If you don't know that term, it's like, what is it that helps you to understand how to be a good person in the world? That relationship is why you should never feel guilty, because you are worthy of taking care of yourself. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you're of no value to anyone else. No one here is meant to be a slave. No one here is meant to be a martyr. No one here is meant to sacrifice themselves so that other people succeed. Because what actually happens is that self-sacrifice isn't actually valuable to that other person. It's something you have taught them, that they can rely on other people to sacrifice themselves or their needs in order to succeed. And what that looks like is teaching someone else to just step on people's heads in order to move forward in life. And that's not fair. That's not equitable. And that also doesn't teach them how to be successful, because it's the same metaphor that Rehan and I use in terms of teaching. This metaphor of teach a man to fish rather than give a man a fish. So give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. And he teaches his village to fish. So that's why I teach what I teach in Amy Carrier's classroom. And any of you who've ever written to me offline and you've asked me a question, I have a stock answer. I write back and I say that ask this in my classroom. Because if I answer the question for just you in private, no one else learns from it. But if I answer it in my virtual classroom, 3,200 other people right now, depending on how many more people join today, 3,200 other souls learn. So you living your empathy and not sacrificing yourself and not feeling guilty teaches other people how to do the same thing. And that's how I learned. I found teachers, I found books, I listened to videos, listened to podcasts and radio shows of people who had learned this exact same thing. I learned from them how to take care of myself, put the oxygen mask on me first. Great question. Thank you very much. So Mian Rehan says life experiences might increase your empathy. I totally agree. The older we get, the more we see suffering, the more we may suffer ourselves. And the more we see it's important to have empathy, share our empathy with the world. Farouk Ishraq, I haven't forgotten you about business policies with empathy. I don't really have a very long answer for you because really it's kind of up to you, but I will get back to you in just a moment. Farouk asks, do I need religion for empathy or in order to practice, or is this something ingrained that you just knock in your inner self? This is between you and you. You don't need religion. There's a reason I don't allow discussion about religion or politics in my classroom. This is fine. This is just Q&A. But it's because religion is, it's a very tricky space. So I can't answer that question for you because this is your religion. And I'm not religious. I was. And I made the personal choice after years and years and years of work to develop my relationship with my God in my own way. And I never preach about it. I never ask anybody else to understand it. And it's really, you don't even hear me talk about God because it's my spirit. I consider it, there's a higher version of me. There's a more enlightened version of me. And I want to spend my life striving to be of that higher quality of myself, that higher version of myself. So no, I don't think you need religion, but I think you do need to understand that this is in you, and it's about you looking at your life and saying, how can I be the best person I can possibly be? Do my spiritual teachings involve religion? No, and they're not even really spiritual teachings. This is conversation that I have with people about, I consider it how to live life, how to be a good person, how to be a decent human being, how to make the world a better place. I use the term spiritual just because other people can then kind of understand. But it's not religious, it's not spiritual in terms of there's any one right way to do any of this. It's just, I like to talk about the more esoteric things that make up who humans are. I feel like there's a lot that's not written in any book anywhere, that's not taught, that's not explained, that you can't even put into words. When we're in our quiet space with ourselves, there's a lot that's inside of us that can't really be communicated. That's what I consider to be spirit. It's kind of this, I heard it described once as there's this life force in every single one of us. And it's what continues to grow our fingernails and tell our lungs how to breathe and continues to grow our hair. That's a life force, but it's also deeper than that because it's what, I'm not connected to any cords. There's no artificial intelligence that's operating me. Something inside of me that's bigger than just this physical body that can grow hair and fingernails and breathe. Something bigger than this is giving me emotions and giving me thoughts and bringing questions to me. And that's that's this big esoteric thing that I'm talking about that I consider to be spirit. Okay. Farouk Ishraq says there are no lifeguards in life. Yes. So that was a metaphor when I was sitting at the beach, wondering why is there not more empathy in the world and how do we teach it? Excuse me. I was sitting behind a lifeguard station and it said, notice, no lifeguard on duty. And I was getting all of these messages on Friday. And I thought, wow, that's an amazing metaphor for life, that there's no lifeguard on duty ever. There's really only us tuning into ourselves inside and finding what's the highest expression of me being a good, kind person in the world. And the bigger message there for me was, don't look for anyone outside of yourself to teach you these things. Don't look for anyone outside of yourself to save you. Don't look for anyone outside of yourself really to do anything. This is up to you. I use that, the reason you shouldn't feel guilty and you shouldn't sacrifice yourself to other people is it looks like just teaching other people to just stand on other people's heads. Why would you do that? You want to teach them how to find their empathy inside themselves. So, okay, let me go back and answer that question. And I really appreciate your questions. These are amazing questions. We're going to spend probably another 5, maybe 10 minutes on this. And then that's going to be the end of today's live lesson. But I want to answer Farouk Ishraq's question. And his question is about how does he find space in his business among his workers or practices? And how can he build policies with an empathy-focused lens? I think this is such a good question. And I'd actually, Farouk Ishraq, I hope that you're a member of Amy Carrier's classroom. And if you're not, please join. Because I would love for you to ask this in my classroom. For all of us to respond to, including Alex, who's a mentor in the classroom who was watching this earlier, and the other mentors. There are 9 mentors in the classroom and myself. There are other mentors I've been recruiting who will be coming in. And this is hey, Alex. I haven't seen many thumbs up or hearts this whole time except from Alex. I hope you guys are here with me. Are you here? It's also possible that you just hit play and you're doing something else in the room. But I'm here. It's great feedback to see hearts and thumbs up. Good, thank you. I see some smiley face in the comments. I mean the hearts and the thumbs up that you put up at the top. Because they actually float up in front of my eyes. I don't always get to see what comes up in the comments, just so you know. So thank you. I'm actually looking at, oh, interesting. Okay, I never get to see them when I'm live. That's really interesting. Okay, because I'm only seeing them down here. Okay, so the policies in the workplace. Hey, Bert. I just got some hearts from Bert. Yay. Thank you, Bert. The policies in your workplace. I think that, oh, thanks, Umair. Thanks. Why am I getting angry faces? Oh. See, this is why I said it's nobody else. It's none of my business what someone else thinks of me. I was looking down and I saw hearts and then I saw angry faces. And at first I'm like, but honestly, it has nothing to do with me. So it's fine. It has something to do with them, not me. Yeah. And they're coming from Rayhan. This is weird. Unless this is someone else using Rayhan's account. This is strange. I'll have to ask him that. So to answer that question about how do I create policies in the workplace to teach my employees? Well, the amazing thing is you're actually, Farouk, you are in the perfect position to teach anyone because you can teach adults. You can teach adults empathy because these are your employees. And you can create either a weekly training or a one-time, 2 days away from work training to talk about empathy. And I actually invite you to play this video and use this as a starting point. You can either take out just the first 25 minutes of the lesson, or you can play the whole 1 hour video and have people react to it and start the dialogue within your business about what is empathy and how do we build it in our business. So I think that's a good place to start if you don't already have policies around anything even similar to this. Maybe you're just like very entry level, starting some discussion about what are our policies around interpersonal communication and collaboration and teamwork and kindness. You can start with those policies and then include empathy. How are we embodying empathy as a team working for this business, but also how are we embodying empathy with our customers and our clients? And if you are learning and teaching your team how to be empathetic for your clients and your customers, you're going to get more clients and customers because you're essentially teaching your team. Let's say your sales team, for example, if you did not watch last week's live lesson that I did for my classroom, it was about your target market. No, it was about research, market research and your target customer. So you want to think about who are your target customers. And because you're already asking this question as a business leader, you can then use this question of how would we feel empathy for our target customer? And, go back and watch last week's lesson, but it's to just tell you very briefly, you outline, let's make up a client. Let's call her Farida. And Farida is 39 years old and she has 3 children. They're 10, 12, and 13. And her husband has just passed away recently. So knowing that about Farida and knowing that she's one of your target customers, how can you incorporate empathy for Farida's reality into your work? And that might be training your team how to have kinder communications with her, or how to just build a relationship with her. It could be as simple as having your team send her a card once a month just to say, hey, Farida, all of us at Farouk Company are thinking about you and just want you to know that we're here for you if you need anything. Oh my gosh, that is like just a pure waterfall of empathy that you're having for one client. And I promise you, word of mouth, that will get out. And then you build your company's reputation as one that is empathetic and kind and cares about people and cares about the community, and maybe even specifically cares about the plight of widows. I mean, I don't even know what your business is, but it doesn't matter. You can care about the plight of widows, whether you're selling technology or soap. Doesn't matter. And if there is someone like Farida in your community, you might choose to every 6 months find someone in your community to adopt, and your team just kind of takes it upon themselves to, maybe for one day go out and help that person clean up their home or, solve problems. And if you are a technology person, there are about 1 million things you can do, especially to help elderly, to get onto technology and learn how to use technology. So you can think about, based on what the skill set is of your company and your team, what can they do to go out and do some sort of volunteer work to illustrate your empathy to the community and to your customers and clients. I hope that answered your question. I'm going to look down at the comments and see what you think about that. Farouk, definitely please respond. Let me know your thoughts on what I just said. Rayhan, I'm on my laptop right now. So, okay, Umar Hyatt said, he asked the question, is this talk about business? Umar, I just use Farouk's example, his business as an example, and I just gave you about 4 or 5 different things that you can do in your business to create policy, to build relationships with target customers, and to actively build empathy in the community through your business. So you should go back and watch that. All right. Farouk, who's different from the other Farouk I was talking to, getting friendly with your employees could cause problems. I actually disagree with you. This is about good leadership. I don't know where you are in the world, and every culture is different, but I disagree with you. You have to learn good leadership skills. And good leaders actually lead by example. They lead by being a member of the team, and they often lead from behind. Now, that's an entirely different lesson. So if you are not a member of Amy Carrier's classroom, I invite you and I encourage you to join so that you can ask this question there. We can have discussion, and then we can do a whole hour-long live lesson on it, because this is the topics that come up for my weekly live lessons that happen every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern and 10 p.m. Pakistani time. These topics come from my classroom, what's been discussed that week. So if you'd really like to talk about leadership behaviors, bring it up in the classroom, and there might be enough discussion to talk about it next week or maybe on a coming Monday. So Kevin, thank you for caring about me. I care about you too. I think it's really cool because I can say that not just because I care about everybody, but I actually met you and I know how your heart works, and I appreciate that very much. So we're going to wind down, and I'm going to just look for a couple more questions. Okay, Farouk Ishraq wrote back, thanks, there were lots of insights, and thanks for the allowance to use the guidelines. Yeah, I hope that you use them, and please bring them to the class. Tell people what you're trying. Obviously, you're not going to try everything at once, but start small. And that might be starting with a conversation with your team about, and you, like I said, you can lump it in with, let's talk about teamwork, let's talk about communication, let's also talk about empathy. Oh, my cat is, now he wants to get out, so this is a good sign that our class is winding down, but I'm going to read a couple more comments here. Gulfam Bangesh says, is the customer right all the time? If you are running a business, the customer has to be right, but you need to be smart and know that you can help the customer feel that they're right by still doing what's best for you and your company. But that's again, that's an entirely different topic. So the cat always has something to say. You're right. All right. And then Umair says, great topic on leadership behavior. It is. And Umair, I would love, maybe I am so grateful for you in my classroom because you're very good at this. You're very good at bringing up topics and staying consistent and asking good questions and always participating in other people's conversations. So I would love it if you would bring this up in the classroom and maybe start the conversation for us. Alex came back. Hey, Alex. Thanks for your loyalty and always popping back in when you get disconnected. So let me just do a quick recap of the things that we talked about today. The sun is shifting, so I'm getting a little blinded. There we go. So we talked today about empathy. And if you have just joined us late, I encourage you to go back and watch this lesson because this was very valuable and some really good questions were asked. And this is coming out of discussion about this that came up in Amy Carrier's classroom and in my personal life last week. So there you go. If you bring up a topic in my classroom, it will very, very likely lead to one of these live lessons with interactive Q&A. So we talked about empathy. What is it? And how do we live empathy? It's not a self-sacrifice. So remember that. But go back and read what it actually is. And then how do we look for empathy in other people? We have to feel that. You can look at people's behavior, certainly, and that's a good indicator. But at the end of the day, everyone's relationship to every different individual is different. So you have to actually drop from your mind and your brain down into your heart, into your feeling center, and say, how do I feel about this person? Do I feel that this person has my best interest at heart? And then one of the other questions that I answered was, how do we identify, that's the one I just described. How do we identify empathy in other people? That's it. You have to go into your heart, and you also look at their behavior in the world. And then how do we teach empathy? And Farouk, forgive me, Farouk, I forget your last name, but you asked that question, how do I bring empathy into policies in my business? And I gave some examples, 4 or 5 examples that I think are really good. And I would love to hear from anyone who employs these practices in their business. And I would love to continue this discussion in my virtual classroom, which is, again, it's a group on Facebook. It's called Amy Carrier's Classroom. The link to it is in the description for this video on Rehan's page right now. And I also invite you to follow me on Facebook. I'm Amy Carrier. So facebook.com/ I know, we're almost done. Facebook.com/Amy Carrier. And I also have a page on Facebook called Amy Lynn Carrier. And that is where you will find out about my courses and anything you can purchase from me that I offer discounts for, you will find on that page, because I can't advertise them on my personal page. So I also really encourage everyone here, go right now to YouTube and subscribe to my channel, because that is where all of my mini lessons, my 3-minute lessons, and these longer 1-hour lessons are cataloged. They're all on my YouTube channel, which is Amy Carrier Empowers. It's youtube.com/Amy Carrier Empowers. EMPOWERS. I'll actually add that in the description when I'm done here. And if you've missed any part of this, you can always go to YouTube. The other videos that I referred to, you can find on YouTube as well. They kind of get lost after a while. Once you scroll down, you know, everybody's feed is very current. So thank you all for joining. Thank you all for all of the questions, and thank you for your participation. Thank you for the thumbs up that I couldn't see on my computer, but I appreciate them. And thank you for being here. And I look forward to next week. And I don't even know what the topic is next week. It's up to you guys. So go join my virtual classroom and start asking some questions. Let's start some conversation. All right, everybody. Have a great week. I'll see you next week. Oh, I'll see you Friday with Rehan at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Pakistani time. He and I do our live entrepreneurship show on Fridays. So every Monday and every Friday, you have access to me to talk about anything with your career and business and entrepreneurship, and kind of the softer things like empathy and kindness and just being a good person in the world. All right. Thank you all so much. I'll see you next time. He's clearly saying goodbye. Say bye-bye, monkey.